So let's talk about a company that you probably know from making your video games look amazing. But right now, they're making a massive multi-billion-dollar bet on the car of the future. We're diving into NVIDIA's incredibly ambitious quest to win the Robotaxi race. Let's get into it.
And yeah, that's the big question, right? Why on earth is a company famous for graphics cards trying to build a self-driving car? Well, the answer pulls back the curtain on a fascinating story about the future of tech, transportation, and even the cities we live in.
Okay, so first, you got to understand NVIDIA's ambition here. The company started way back in 1993, and they basically built an empire on graphics processing units, GPUs. But it turns out, the very same chips that create these stunningly realistic worlds in video games are also perfect for something else: training artificial intelligence.
And they didn't just get good at it, they became the undisputed kings. I mean, think about this. Today, NVIDIA's tech is the engine behind over 90% of all AI workloads on the entire planet. So they're not just another tech company. They're basically the foundational layer of the whole AI revolution. And that is their golden ticket into the car world.
And they are putting their money where their mouth is, big time. This is not some little side project. NVIDIA is planning to pour around $3 billion into creating a technical showcase for the Robotaxi technology. This is an all-in, high-stakes play to prove they can completely redefine how we get around.
So what's the plan? How are they actually going to do it? Let's take a look inside their AI-powered playbook. What's the secret sauce that gives them the confidence to go up against giants like Waymo and Tesla? Well, it all starts with a very specific goal. And that goal is level 4 autonomy. So what does that actually mean? In simple terms, it's a car that can do everything: steering, braking, navigating, all on its own, at least within a specific area or under certain conditions. No driver needed. You just get in and go. This is the holy grail for any robotaxi service.
Now, their approach to getting there is pretty unique. Instead of having a bunch of separate AI systems, one for steering, one for braking, another for seeing stuff, NVIDIA is using a single end-to-end neural network. Just think of it like one powerful, comprehensive brain for the entire car. And the craziest part? It's trained in a massive virtual world where it can practice millions of driving scenarios before its tires ever touch a real road.
And the challenge that brain has to solve is just immense. A real robotaxi, with all its cameras, radar, and LiDAR sensors, has to process a mind-boggling amount of information. We're talking up to 100 times more sensor data than even the most advanced cars you can buy today. This is a pure, raw computing power problem. And guess what? That is NVIDIA's home turf.
But okay, how do you make all of this insane complexity actually, safe? Well, NVIDIA's strategy has multiple layers. It starts with the tech on the car, with redundant sensors, so if one fails, others are there. Then, during development, they do this super rigorous risk analysis. And it's all built on top of incredibly powerful, safety-certified hardware that's designed from the ground up to be reliable.
Of course, NVIDIA isn't doing this in a vacuum, not by a long shot. They're jumping headfirst into one of the most intense, high-stakes competitions in the world right now.
I mean, look at the competition. You've got Waymo, the OG, with years of data and the deep pockets of Google's parent company, Alphabet. Over in China, Baidu is already running some pretty advanced commercial services. Then you have Tesla, of course, betting that its massive fleet of cars can basically become robotaxis with a software update. NVIDIA's angle? Be the core technology provider that powers many of these players and maybe even their own service down the line.
And the field just keeps getting more crowded. You have these heavily funded startups like Pony.ai in China. There's Zoox, which is owned by Amazon and is developing some really fascinating tech to predict what other cars and people will do. And then there are companies like WeRide, which are already teaming up with NVIDIA to get their services out on the streets.
But for every single company in this race, the road ahead is anything but smooth. There's a massive gauntlet of challenges that everyone, NVIDIA included, has to get through first. Which brings us to the most fundamental question of all. The technology might be getting close, but is the world actually ready for robotaxis to be everywhere?
The roadblocks ahead are huge, and they really fall into 3 main buckets: the technical puzzles that are still left to solve, a complete maze of regulations, and maybe the biggest one of all, getting regular people to actually accept them.
On the technical side, you still have that raw power problem, just crunching all that data in real time. But there's also something called the edge case problem. What does the AI do when it sees a stop sign, but a tree branch is kind of covering part of it? It has to be prepared for a nearly infinite number of these weird, rare, but supercritical moments.
And then, you have the legal nightmare. In the US alone, only about 10 states have specific rules for autonomous cars. It's a total patchwork of different laws, which makes trying to launch a service nationwide incredibly difficult. And nobody has answered the biggest question yet. If a self-driving car crashes, who's to blame?
And really, all of this comes down to the human element. At the end of the day, gaining public trust is absolutely the most critical hurdle. We've already seen public backlash against other robotaxi services when things go wrong. People have to feel safe, and building that confidence is a monumental task.
So with all of these massive challenges, why is everyone fighting so hard to win this race? Well, because the prize at the finish line is absolutely staggering. It's time to talk about the $45 billion question.
Just look at the scale of this opportunity. In 2023, the entire robotaxi market was worth less than $500 million. But by 2030, it's projected to explode to nearly $46 billion. That's not just growth. That is a 100-fold explosion. It's the kind of disruption that defines an entire generation of technology. And don't get it twisted, this isn't some far-off science fiction dream. This future is arriving right now. We're already seeing pilot fleets in cities around the world grow from just a handful of test cars to fleets of hundreds, moving out of the lab and into early commercial services that you can actually ride in. But as these cars hit the streets, they're bringing those deep, really uncomfortable questions with them. Who's responsible in a crash? In an unavoidable accident, what moral choice should a car's AI make? These are huge questions that we as a society still have no real answers for. And this is why the stakes are just so incredibly high. The company that wins this race, they won't just be building a new car or a slightly better taxi service, they will be fundamentally redefining the very fabric of our cities, changing how we move, how we work, and how we live. So that leaves us with one final massive question. With the old guard, the tech giants, and all these hungry newcomers in the ring, who is actually going to win the race to define the future of our cities? That's the billion-dollar question that companies like NVIDIA are betting everything they have to answer.